World. At the present moment, groups of people are engaged in welfare activities in terms of society, community, or nation. There is even an attempt in the form of the United Nations for world help activity. But due to the shortcomings of limited national activities, such a general mass welfare program for the whole world is not practically possible. The Krishna consciousness movement, however, is so nice that it can render the highest benefit to the entire human race. Everyone can be attracted by the movement, and everyone can feel the result. Therefore, Rupa Goswami and other learned scholars agree that a broad propaganda program for the Krishna consciousness movement of devotional service all over the world is the highest humanitarian welfare activity. How the Krishna consciousness movement can attract the attention of the whole world, and how each and every man can feel pleasure in this Krishna consciousness, is stated in the Padma Purana as follows. A person who is engaged in devotional service in full Krishna consciousness is to be understood to be doing the best service to the whole world and to be pleasing everyone in the world. In addition to human society, he is pleasing even the trees and animals, because they also become attracted by such a movement. A practical example of this was shown by Lord Chaitanya when he was traveling through the forests of Jharkhand in central India for spreading his Sankirtan movement. The tigers, the elephants, the deer, and all the other wild animals joined him and were participating in their own ways by dancing and chanting Hare Krishna. Furthermore, a person engaged in Krishna consciousness, acting in devotional service, can develop all the good qualities that are generally found in the demigods. It is said by Sukadeva Goswami in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 18th chapter, verse 12, "My dear king, persons who have unflinching faith in Krishna and are without any duplicity can develop all the good qualities of demigods. On account of a devotee's high grade of Krishna consciousness, even the demigods like to live with him, and therefore it can be understood that the qualities of the demigods have developed within his body. On the other hand, a person who is not in Krishna consciousness has no good qualities. He may be highly educated from the academic point of view, but in the actual field of his activities, he can be seen to be baser than the animals, even though a person is highly educated academically. If he cannot go beyond the sphere of mental activities, then he is sure to perform only material activities and thus remain impure. There are so many persons in the modern world who have been highly educated in the materialistic universities, but it is seen that they cannot take up the movement of Krishna consciousness and develop the high qualities of the demigods. For example, a Krishna conscious boy, even if he is not very well educated by the university standard, can immediately give up all illicit sex life, gambling, meat eating, and intoxication. Whereas those who are not in Krishna consciousness, although very highly educated, are often drunkards, meat eaters, sex mongers, and gamblers. These are practical proofs of how a Krishna conscious person becomes highly developed in good qualities, whereas a person who is not in Krishna consciousness cannot do so. We experience that even a young boy in Krishna consciousness is unattached to cinemas, nightclubs, naked dance shows, restaurants, liquor shops, etc. He becomes completely freed. He saves his valuable time from being extravagantly spent in the way of smoking, drinking, attending the theater, and dancing. One who is not in Krishna consciousness usually cannot sit silently even for half an hour. The yoga system teaches that if you become silent, you will realize that you are God. This system may be all right for materialistic persons, but how long will they be able to keep themselves silent? Artificially, they may sit down for so-called meditation, but immediately after their yogic performance, they will engage themselves again in such activities as illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, and many other nonsensical things. But a Krishna conscious person gradually elevates himself without endeavoring for this so-called silent meditation. Simply because he is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he automatically gives up all his nonsense and develops a high character. One develops the highest character by becoming a pure devotee of Krishna. The conclusion is that no one can truly have any good qualities if he is lacking in Krishna consciousness. Nectar Devotion Ki Jai. Reading from the Bhagavad-Gita, 13th chapter, text 25, and no bookmark. Chapter entitled Nature, the Enjoyer in Consciousness. Dhyayen Atmani Pashyanti Kechidatmanam Anye Sankena Yogena Kama Yogena Chapare. Please chant. Are we doing 1325? Kechidatmanam Anye Sankena Yogena Kama Yogena Chapare Dhyanatmani Pashyanti Kechidatmanam Sankena Yogena Kama Yogena Chapare Dhyanatmani Pashyanti Kechidatmanam Anye Sankena Yogena Kama Yogena Chapare Dhyanatmani Pashyanti Kechidatmanam Anye Sankena Yogena Kama Yogena Chapare Dhyayena, by meditation, Atmani, within the self, Pashyanti, see, Kechit, some, Atmanam, the super soul, Atmana, the mind, Anye, others, Sankena, of philosophical discussion, Yogena, by the yoga system, Karma Yogena, by activities without fruit of desire, Cha, also, Apare, others. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruit of desires. Purport. The Lord informs Arjuna that the conditioned souls can be divided into two classes, as far as man's search for self-realization is concerned. Those who are atheists, agnostics, and skeptics are beyond the sense of spiritual understanding. But there are others who are faithful in their understanding of spiritual life, and they are called introspective devotees, philosophers, and workers who have renounced fruitive results. Those who always try to establish the doctrine of monism are also counted among the atheists and agnostics. In other words, only the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are best situated in spiritual understanding, because they understand that beyond this material nature are the spiritual world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is expanded as the Paramatma, the Super Soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Super Soul in everyone, the all-pervading Godhead. Of course, there are those who try to understand the Supreme Absolute Truth by cultivation of knowledge, and they can be counted in the class of the faithful. The Sankhya philosophers analyze this material world into 24 elements, and they place the individual soul as the 25th item. When they are able to understand the nature of the individual soul to be transcendental to the material elements, they are able to understand also that above the individual soul there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the 26th element. Thus, gradually, they also come to the standard of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Those who work without fruitive results are also perfect in their attitude. They are given a chance to advance to the platform of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Here it is stated that there are some people who are pure in consciousness and who try to find out the Supersoul by meditation. And when they discover the Supersoul within themselves, they become transcendentally situated. Similarly, there are others who also try to understand the Supreme Soul by cultivation of knowledge. And there are others who cultivate Hatha Yoga system and who try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by childish activities. Translation again. Some perceive the Super Soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. Om Jnana Timrandasya Garanjana Shlokaya Chakshurana Tevanadasmaya Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankai Degarim Yakripatama Ham Bande Shri Gurum Denatanam. This simple understanding who is a devotee, who is a non-devotee, and who is eligible to become a devotee. So Srila Prabhupada gives us these examples in order to not just to analyze for someone who is reading this for the first time, but to help those who are already, after 13 chapters, trying to understand where am I in my advancement in Krishna consciousness. Up to where you can see that this Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan Iti Shabdite. That this concept of Super Soul, situated within the heart of every living entity, is a very satisfying, comforting concept, that God is within everyone's heart. Sarvasya chaham ridisani vishto matak smiti aganam apavanam cha. So when one gets this realization that this knowledge is not something external, but it is being gradually revealed by the Super Soul according to our sincere desire to please the Supreme Lord. This is the Chaita Darpana Marjanam consideration. We talked about cleaning the pots. So the heart, the cleansing of the heart, the removing the dust from the mirror, which is given the example of being the heart. One takes some measure that how this knowledge, for which I have no previous experience, how is it being revealed? How am I able to understand that which is beyond my mind and senses? There's an interesting exchange between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadev Goswami in Krishna book from 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, and that chapter entitled Prayers by the Personified Vedas. Where Parikshit Maharaj is saying, how can I understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to this material nature, with my material mind and senses? How is it possible? I am limited in all respects. to my mundane senses. But we see that the Supersoul residing within can reveal this information according to one's sincere desire. So therefore, this spiritual intelligence, this is not material. This is why it becomes very critical that one analyze his realizations in terms of the Shastra, Shastra Chakshus. Not that I have some realization, some new realization, never before. This is the definition of the Munis. The Munis are the mental speculators, the wranglers. They are always attempting to come up with something new in order to lay claim for their profit, distinction, and adoration. It has nothing to do with pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everything to do with establishing themselves as some unique personality. Prabhupada was boldly criticizing Vivekananda in Bombay, and he used to have these arguments with several persons who were interested. They would come on his walks on the beach, and they're very challenging. They would always question, why you have to criticize these? But Prabhupada was very heavy. He said, they have ruined Vedic culture. Such a strong condemnation. They have ruined Vedic culture. Because they have given all false information, false conception. They have misled the people in general. Because ultimately it is simply covered Mayavad to appeal to those intellectuals who are attracted to the flowery words of the Vedas. So this is exactly opposite of what Srila Prabhupada did. Exactly the correct method as given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to apply this teachings of the truth. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was always careful to categorize that the truth is not separate from the conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not meant to be given any alternate definition. And so he would, like an expert surgeon, he said that the spiritual master will cut out any of this false understanding, this Mayavad, wherever it is, however small it may seem to be. And this is the duty of all the devotees, that wherever they see this impersonalism creeping in to our societies, that they must immediately cut it out. It has no place here. And it doesn't always appear as just someone saying everything is one. This would be easy. Sometimes it appears very, how can you say, familiar. But even in casual conversations, you'll hear sometimes people describing how that all these societies, all these maths, all these, they're all just different paths, all leading to the same destination. But this is exactly the pitfall that Srila Prabhupada wanted us to avoid. Because they are not equal. Tomorrow we come to the very auspicious occasion of Guru Purnima. The meaning of this should not go without careful meditation and consideration. What is one's relationship? In this same time period, in 1976, Srila Prabhupada arrived and we picked him from the airport. And that same day he gave this class on Madhya Lila chapter 20. So very careful. And of course these are the Lord's instructions to Sanatana Goswami. So in the course of that discussion, and we'll read this chapter tomorrow in class, he said, one should not attempt to leapfrog over the spiritual master. One should not attempt. Does everybody know what leapfrog means? Leapfrog is a game the children play to jump over one another. He used that term, very familiar to us. I don't know how familiar, but so the children will grab another's back and go over, and whoever cannot, then he becomes that person who has to attempt, called leapfrog. So he said one should not try to jump over the head of the spiritual master. Because sometimes this is the case, that someone is thinking, oh, well, this is all our line. What is the harm? But that immediately puts you in a dangerous situation of minimizing the relationship and the position of the spiritual master. This is actually a very offensive mentality. Although it may not appear to be such at first. But that goes back to Srila Prabhupada's instructions. First deserve, then desire. First deserve. So how do we deserve? We deserve by learning sevaya, service to the spiritual master. And the result of that pariprashnena sevaya is daya. Is that personality, he has mercy. So we are not getting mercy from, if you jump over and say, I want the mercy of Srila Rupa Goswami. Yes, we can ask. Why not? We're praying. Nana Shastra Vichara Narkanipano. But do we have, what is our connection? Our connection is through Srila Prabhupada. So we have to be very, very careful. And this, in turn, he is the Chaita Guru. He is the super soul within the heart. He is the external manifestation. There is none other. But the tendency is to make some equation. Yes, one time Srila Prabhupada said Guru is one. But then he very strongly condemned, one time in the class, someone was chanting Gurudev, Gurudev. Prabhupada said, who is this Gurudev? Who is this Gurudev? He didn't like to hear that. So all these very simple little things that had to be observed to understand Srila Prabhupada's mood. So this attention to Srila Prabhupada's mood is very pleasing to him specifically. We know that nothing pleased him more than distribution of his books. We can think of so many other ways. Of course, everyone has his service. It is not some artificial that I will be a book distributor and against the instructions of the temple authorities I will just go out and distribute books. No. One has to be qualified by pleasing those to whom he is put under their charge. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the example that when he went in during the pastime of Gundicha Marjanado, he went and he approached the Math commander, the temple commander. He's the Supreme Personality of God. He could have just done whatever he wanted, but he approached the temple commander to show the example that what would you have?